Hello and welcome to Triumph After Abuse. Today we're going to look at an actor from Brantford, Ontario, Canada, and he met a fatal end in 1998. I don't know if any of you really recall that was that long ago. And he was shot, I guess, 3 times by his wife. And this is Phil Hartman. He was on news radio. He was on Saturday Night Live for, I think, 10 years. And he, by all accounts, he was a pretty great guy. The most dangerous thing you can do if you're planning to leave your abusive relationship is telling the abuser that you're planning on leaving the abusive relationship. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to read an article. Before comedian and actor Phil Hartman was shot to death by his wife, he rose to fame during his 8 seasons, I thought it was 10, on Saturday Night Live from 1985 to 1996, following by 3 years on the sitcom News Radio. Overlapping those years, Hartman was also one of the most recognizable voice actors of the golden age of The Simpsons, from 1991 to 1998. A gifted comedian and character actor, Hartman's voicing of sleazy and washed-up characters such as faded actor Troy McClure and ambulance-chasing lawyer Lionel Hutz helped elevate the show beyond an animated family comedy to become a striking satire of American society at large. Hartman's influence on his fellow voice actors was so great that when Futurama voice actor Billy West was tasked with bringing to life the solipsistic space pilot, Zap Brannigan, he based the voice on Hartman's work on The Simpsons, as well as a shared familiarity with overconfident Hollywood actors, per HuffPost. By the way, this is Celebrity Sunday. I'm going to do this every Sunday. And here we go. However, the homage was also the result of a tragedy. Hartman himself was in fact due to voice Brannigan, but died in shocking circumstances on May 28, 1998, at the age of 49, before Futurama went into production. I think in my old age, I've come to realize just how precious everything is, and I try to value the many blessings that have been bestowed upon me, Hartman said shortly before his death. But there's also a sense of vulnerability if fortune took a turn for the worse, and you live in the awareness that anything can happen in this world. Here are the details of his death as revealed through autopsy files. Shot to death by his wife. The first indication that something was amiss in the Hartman household came when his wife, to whom he'd been married for more than a decade, arrived at the house of a friend in the early hours of the morning, telling the friend simply, "I shot Phil," according to the investigative report. She remained at the home of the friend for 3 hours, after which he convinced her to return with him to the Hartman home, where he confirmed Hartman's shooting before he called the police. The autopsy showed that the murderer had shot Hartman multiple times, first in the forehead, which the coroner identified as the fatal injury, no kidding, again through the neck, and once more through the right forearm and chest. A total of 3 shots were fired in the killing of Hartman, who was asleep in bed at the time of the killing and unarmed, according to the autopsy report. In a chilling line that gives an insight into the compound nature of the tragedy that destroyed the Hartman family, the reported claims that the murder weapon was found near the suspect. also deceased. So we know what that is. Through the autopsy, though the autopsy goes no further than saying Hartman died of multiple gunshot wounds, the witness reports included in the document and the detail regarding the location of the murder weapon explain how the shocking murder became a dual. I can't say that word on here. As police were unable to detain the murderer even after she had confessed to the killing of her husband. After the murderer had returned to the Hartman home with her friend in the early hours of the morning, she went and hid in the bedroom with Hartman's body, refusing to come out. The friend passed officers the revolver that she had brought with her when she turned up at his house. But by the time they arrived at the scene, she had taken possession of another pistol. As police were trying to talk her into turning herself into custody, the report claims they attempted to distract her with a diversion in which an officer broke a window of the property. A shot rang out. She was found dead of a single gunshot wound next to where she had killed Hartman, who had been dead for hours. They were lying side by side on the bed. And then it says where you can find details of their relationship. She was intoxicated at the time of the murder, having consumed alcohol and cocaine on top of the antidepressant Zoloft. Between the coke and alcohol, the two of them most definitely intensified the other effects. And Zoloft is kind of a wild card, said County Coroner Craig Harvey. Even more disturbingly, Phil Hartman's murder investigation report also revealed that his two children, who were both under the age of 10, were in the house at the time and were still on the property when she returned with her friend and the police were called. Officers took 9-year-old Sean and 6-year-old Bergen away from the home just as the shot that killed herself was heard. According to the Minnesota Daily, the children were later put in the care of the murderer's sister and brother-in-law and were the sole inheritors of Hartman's $1.23 million estate. Though undoubtedly traumatized by the shocking effects that took the lives of both their parents, Hartman's daughter Bergen has since described her joy that her father's work on The Simpsons lives on, telling a Hollywood Reporter in 2022, "It's great that people still love and remember my dad's characters even after 20 plus years. I still see people quoting Lionel Hutz or sharing Troy McClure memes. The fact that these characters have carried themselves into the modern day and have remained relevant is just so cool to see, and I think my dad would have been proud of that." So, that is the article. There's some interesting facts about them. Phil was married. This was his third marriage. I think he got along well with his first wife and his second wife, and Phil was sort of the type that, by the sounds of it, loved falling in love, but wasn't great at maintaining a relationship because he was emotionally unavailable, I would say. And so when he married his third wife, instead of her leaving because he was emotionally unavailable, and he was kind of a recluse and liked to be by himself and all that kind of stuff, like his personality on air was definitely not the person he was. He had to be like this crazy personality for the shows that he was in, but he just didn't want to be like that off camera. So it was sort of a I think there's a video of him going through their house that they bought, and he's got two mirrors at his sink, and he goes, "These are the two mirrors for my split personality." And so he knew that he was two different people. There's also an interview with his second wife after he was gone, and she said when they had their first child, Sean, that she had written them like gotten him a card and written a really nice thing saying, "I'm thrilled for both of you, and if you ever need a sitter, call on me," and whatnot. And I think they kept in touch. And the response she got was a 2-page enraged, furious letter from his current wife about, like, "You better not ever contact us, I better not ever see you," and like full of death threats and stuff like that. So what she had done was she had called Phil, and he said to her, he sort of just joked it off and said, "Well, yeah, you should have seen the letter she wanted to send." So there were other times when he confided in his friends that, like, sometimes he just had to pretend he was sleeping, or they would be arguing all night long, like he needed to sleep, so he would just pretend he was sleeping so that there'd be no more arguing. So I think he was emotionally shut down, and that's what a lot of people do when they're being abused, is that they emotionally shut down. And I'm not saying his first two wives were abusive at all, but for sure the third wife was. If she's sending letters like that. And apparently what had happened was, I guess what triggered the outburst, by the sounds of it, from what I could tell, was that she had been addicted to substances and to alcohol, and I guess she was on antidepressants, Zoloft, obviously. And she had been in and out of rehab, and she had been sober for a number of years, and then she fell off the wagon and whatever. So I don't know whether she was being like having outbursts or whatnot, but basically he said to her, like, "You need to get it together or I'm divorcing you." So there was the trigger of, your whole life's, basically he was the breadwinner, she was at home with the two children, and your whole life's going to be different, and you're not going to live in this fancy schmancy house and whatnot. And I think that from the sounds of it, he married her to have like this trophy wife on his arm, and that was his idea of success, like having this tall blonde beauty on his arm. And she married him for the success that he could bring, and the status of, her status raises with his type thing. And she used to come into the writer's room at Saturday Night Live and flirt with all the guys and sit on their laps and stuff like that, just for attention, because Phil was a withdrawn, reclusive type of person when they were just at home. He just wanted to kick back and read a book, or go off on his boat or whatever. And I guess maybe that's selfish or whatever, but that's the guy he is. And if you don't like it, like, there's the door. You don't put up with it because the guy makes tons of money. So she had other choices, and he had other choices. So, and a lot of people, not a lot of people, there was an interview done, I can't remember what friend it was that said it, and, basically Phil kind of told him that things were tumultuous, and, the friend was like, "Oh my God, like I thought your life was perfect. You look so happy and all that." And he said, "You have no idea what goes on behind closed doors." So his friends were very, very shocked because I don't think he told a lot of people this. Anyways, so yeah, if you're thinking of leaving your relationship due to abuse because you're with an abusive person, yeah, don't be telling them your plans. Only entrust your plans to people you absolutely 100% trust. And I know that I've done that to people, or I've disclosed to people who I trusted that just couldn't be trusted. So I've been in trouble sometimes over the years for that. Anyways, so yeah, please don't tell an abuser your plans on leaving them, and that would keep you much, much safer. That's the most dangerous thing you can do, and the most dangerous time is when you leave the person, because they will seek you out and do anything in their power to get you back. And then they'll make sure that you regretted leaving them the first time, if you know what I'm saying. And you wonder why. I think the statistics are it takes like 7 to 9 times for an abuser, like for a victim of abuse to leave for good their abuser, because they're so good at conning you to come back. Explain a little bit more of the physiology behind that at a later date. Anyway, as per usual, I will say, keep in touch with your friends who you're worried about, and if you're worried about yourself, reach out to your friends and family. They care about you. They really do. There's somebody always cares. And build a support system around yourself to keep yourself safe. And you have somewhere to go if you feel unsafe. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.